Hey everyone, it's Stephanie Boozer with CUGC HQ. You can't see me today because I am having a little bit of trouble with my connection, and it sounds better if I talk to you with my camera off. So I'm waving at you, but you can't see me. Very happy to welcome you to today's CUGC webinar, Ask Me Anything. This is our third Ask Me Anything with our global sponsors, and we have panelists from Automai, Goliath Technologies, and Nutanix on with us today. Before we dig in and get to all your questions, I just have a couple of things I want to go over. First of all, you will receive a link to today's recording that is going to come to you in an email directly from GoToWebinar, and that'll come tomorrow, so just be on the lookout for that. Also, I know a lot of you pre-submitted your questions, and we have a big long list of them that we're going to get to, but if you have more questions as we go along, just type them in the chat. We'll take as many as we have time for today. And finally, at the very end, I'm going to throw a link in the chat for you to a survey. It's short and anonymous, and it's just for CUGC. So we just love to get your feedback and hope you'll fill that out. And also just want to remind you that I know most of you are probably aware, but we do still have our local events going on, even though they're not in person and we can't gather together. Physically, we can virtually. So we do have lots of stuff on the calendar, so please check that out. There's a link in the chat to our events calendar already. Today, actually, Vancouver is having their meeting, and Patrick Coble, CTP, is speaking. He's a great speaker if you haven't seen him yet. And then coming up, we have two more of our bigger Excel events. Those are multiple technical sessions. We usually have a fun keynote speaker. The last one we had was last week, Great Lakes Excel. We had a magician. It was a really awesome presentation, very cool. But then there's also lots of great technical content, so check those out. All right, so I am very excited to have Steve Greenberg with us today. He's going to moderate the questions for us. He's got your questions you've pre-submitted. He's also going to keep an eye on the question box. Steve is a CTP fellow, and he is heavily involved with our Phoenix CUGC group. Steve, say hello.
Hello, great to be here.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And then I'm just going to briefly go over who's on our call with us, and then I'm going to turn things over to Steve and the panelists and let them say a little bit more about themselves. But just as a brief introduction, we have Sam Bonilla of Automai. He is a CTO. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
We also have Thomas. Oh, thank you. We also have Thomas Charlton, the CEO of Goliath Technologies, and with him is Heather Hanlon, a technical consultant.
Great to be here.
Hi, everyone.
And we also have Jarian Gibson. He is Senior Solutions Architect at Nutanix. He is one of our leaders at Kansas City Metro Group and a CTP. So hello, Jarian.
Hello, thanks for having me back again.
Glad to have you. All right, so that is all I have for slides. I'm going to stop sharing those, and I'm going to hand things right on over to you, Steve, to get us started and maybe let everybody say a little bit about themselves, and then we'll dive into some of these really great questions that we have today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie. Great to be here. I'm not Shane Kleinert, or I'm not as funny, but I do have some dance moves like Shane does. Let me jump in. I'm going to go, since I see you guys in a certain way on my screen, I'm going to start with Jarian. I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and the company you represent and what you're doing today. But also want to ask if you want to throw in something personal about us being at home and working at home in isolation. So the first thing I'll throw out to you is, this is a dry clean shirt that was sitting at my dry cleaner for 4.5 months. And I was like, I probably should go get those clothes. And it's the first time I've worn something dry cleaned since this all started. And the other addition, if I move out of the way, as you can see my exercise bike in my office, that was necessary because I couldn't get to the gym and I was kind of going crazy. I thought I hated the gym, but it turns out it makes me feel really good and I missed it. So Jarian, tell us about yourself and anything that maybe comes to mind about the isolation and recent events and being at home.
Yeah, so as Stephanie said, my name is Jarian Gibson. I'm with Nutanix, Senior Solutions Architect in Engineering. I focused on end user computing. A lot of the work I do at Nutanix is Citrix on Nutanix, so always happy to be on here with CUGC. And kind of some things going on with me is I usually work from home anyway. I'm on a global team, so like my manager is in Netherlands, my counterpart's in Netherlands. I'm the main US based employee on in my team, in our immediate team. And so we're all spread out. But I've been working from home probably the past 6 years now. What's been interesting for me is that with everything going on and the changes that my kids went on spring break on March 15th, and Kansas closed schools really early, so they've been home pretty much since March 15th. And my wife usually goes to the office, and she's been home as well. So I have the office that I built a couple years ago on the back of my property, but with everybody home and us trying to balance everything, I've been more working inside the house than from the office. So my office has been more of kind of collecting dust than being used at the moment. So yeah.
That's interesting, Jari, because if I could add, that's a really backwards thing you'd expect, because you built the shed quarters. It was a very popular project in the community. So you're finding that you actually have to go to the house more because of the situation, right? Really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a balance with my wife's schedule with her being on calls and her meetings and my calls and meetings. So it's been just easier working at the house because we can kind of shuffle during the day of who's helping with the kids, because I have a 6-year-old and 8-year-old. So we always got to keep our eye on them, pretty much.
Good. Good. Well, great to learn more about you. Let's go over to Sam. Tell us about yourself, Sam.
Hi. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I am a CTO here at Automai Corporation, which used to be called NRG Global. We just changed the name about 1 year ago. And I'm one of the co-founders of NRG Global back in 2000. So I am kind of on the technical side. I am the product manager here. Was one of the first designers of the Automai robots, and we've been doing this for quite a while now. Our products actually for 15 years. It's pretty exciting stuff that keeps us always trying to find the new technologies and how to make our robots smart and learn and act like assist our end users and in the AUC space as well. We're based out of Los Angeles, and as two, we actually been in lockdown for quite some time now, and we're going through phase 2 as well. My kids have been in the house since March 15, or I think even a little bit earlier. But it's been fun and challenging at times. But overall, actually, I'm enjoying working at home with my kids. It is a very short commute for us from the bedroom to the office. It's no issues here.
Great.
At all.
Thanks for that, Sam. Let's go to Heather now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Hanlon. I work with Goliath Technologies. I've been there for about 5.5, 6 years now, and I lead the support and implementation team. So I'm working on the front lines with our customers, making sure they can get Goliath implemented and use our tool and technology to help them troubleshoot and resolve issues in their environment. So for all you guys listening, I hear your pain and happy to work with you to assist and relieve that process. And as far as this whole quarantine situation, I guess my major thing is planning a wedding. I'm actually supposed to get married next Saturday, and
Oh, wow.
I feel like every other day you get new information and new setbacks. So that has been my stress ball in and of itself. So it's definitely been interesting.
Well, Heather, congratulations, first of all. And I hope you really, really enjoy it. I'm sorry it's happening at this time, but don't let it get you. Just enjoy your wedding. It's a great day and a great part of your life. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Thomas, it looks like you're coming in from the hunting lodge. Are you up north on a hunting vacation, or what are we doing here?
No, I'm just sequestered in a part of the house that keeps me away from the children. So I lead the team over at Goliath Technologies. We started the company a few years before Heather joined us out of college. And early on, I remember, Jarian, you all were working with a group out of Boston, I think, doing the tech bake-offs early on. So it's just been a fantastic ride in the Citrix community for us, focusing on making Citrix perform better for our joint customers. So it's been a pretty fantastic ride. And the whole work from home thing makes me wish this would have happened years ago before I got into a long-term lease at an office, because the team seems to be working so well from home. And I was thoroughly convinced that we needed to be in an office setting, except for the developers and technical support folks that we had all over. But as it turns out, people seem to work at home effectively. And in an odd sense, they work a little bit more, right? I mean, if you start breaking down how much time people take commuting and getting ready for work and all of those sort of needless things when you can telecommute, that's been pretty fantastic and eye-opening for me. Certainly changed my opinion of tech folks have always worked remote, right? So, and you trust that they're going to do whatever they need to do, etc. But other parts of the business, you feel like you need to have them in-house, and there are synergies that can happen. And certainly that misses a little bit, but the overall benefit for the team members has just been great, you know, with the exception of people that are planning weddings, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. Thanks for that, Thomas. It's great to have you all here today. I'm going to jump into some questions that were pre-sent, and we'll also be monitoring the chat. And Brian Mooney says hi from the questions. Hey, Brian, great to have you on. I'm going to put out a question first, and maybe if you would each respond with what your product does in a category, and then address this question, because you may have to adjust it if your product is doing something, or you want to focus on a different element. So the question came is, how can I convey the importance of monitoring, or I might say automation, or whatever you want to talk about, the importance of your feature to my senior management so I can get budget allocated? I love this question. We probably could spend the whole time on this. So Jarian, I'll start with you just so I can remember who's going in order.
Okay, yeah, so how can you convey that to management, the benefit and so forth of our product? So with Nutanix, is one of the things that we do is when you run Citrix on Nutanix, whether it's MCS or PVS, so one of the good things that we do is that we have linear scalability. So as you start from a small environment with 3 nodes and you go out to multiple nodes, you should be able to have the same scale starting with day 1 as you get to day X, in your deployment. There shouldn't be any surprises as far as how many users you're going to get on the platform per node and so forth. And that goes into where we have predictable performance too as well. So one of the things that I do in my role within our team is we do our reference architecture guide. So every time there's a new release of a hypervisor, some new patches, a Windows OS, or even a Citrix version, we go through and test that a number of times to make sure that anything that changes in our platform that impact performance, that we fix that. And that way, every time a new release comes out, that again, we go back to those 2 things where we have predictable performance and linear scalability. So as you go from the start of your project to the end of your project, there's no surprises, there's no gotchas, and you're seeing the same performance, the same user experience, and so forth as you scale.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot in the field, Jarian. That's a really good, you got that explanation down really well. It takes me longer to say the same thing, but that predictability is a big deal, and it's been a big benefit for a lot of people. Also, the idea that all these different tools come in one platform, and you're not, like, by not having like an external storage platform, you're not having to go, well, if I have 200 users, I need this storage array if I have 1,000. So that's really well said, thanks. I'm gonna jump over to Sam. Someone's interested in Automai, and they want to do it, but they have to go sell it and talk about the value. How do you talk about that, Sam?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna add a little bit to what Jarian said very, very well, because that's actually explains exactly where Automai helps corporations make sure to predict what's gonna happen when they go live to test their products. And one thing I would say, if we have to go back in the history of big rollouts and catastrophes, you see how Obamacare's website was launched a few years back, and we try to avoid that. If you can run a test on your application before you launch it and make sure to know what's going to happen once it's live. And what we try to do with our robotic solution is to look at the applications from the end user standpoint, literally seeing how they're going to access the application, going through load balancers, whether using Citrix or any business process with third-party applications and so on, whether for functional testing, performance testing, or robotic process automation as well, which will help end users in all their repetitive tasks.
Well, end user experience is the key, right? And it's really great to hear you talk about
Absolutely.
that, because this is end user computing, and really the user only sees the surface. There's so much happening in the back, but it doesn't matter how great an environment you built and the speeds and feeds and the amazing hyper-converged software that you use if the user's not having a good experience, right? So at the end of the day, that's great. Thank you. So we're going to jump to Thomas first and get the CEO's answer to this question, and then we're going to go to the techie smarty pants Heather after and see if there's any difference between what the CEO and the support tech person has to say. So Thomas, someone comes to you, they like what you do, they have to explain the value of it. Go.
Well, first of all, if they come to us, just for context, if they come to us, they need to be in a little bit of pain. So if somebody has free tools and the free tools are working, or they don't have any problems with their Citrix end user experience related to Citrix or the applications, so they don't come to us. But if they do come to us, the situation we often find ourselves in is the technical folks know that they need a purpose-built technology like ours to help them resolve end user experience issues. But when they go, and we talk a lot we run into this scenario a lot, because people will say, listen, I know we need a technology like yours, but how do I bring this to upper management and get it approved? And what I say to them all the time is, don't bring emotion to a logic fight. I'm the person you're probably going to be presenting to, or the type of person to try to get this approved. And by coming and saying how bad your life is and how you're getting complaints, but I'm not hearing it from anyone else but you, what I would fall back on are a couple of pieces of logic, and some Citrix has just released. So what they said in this recently released infographic was they'll call it 400,000 customers worldwide. And let's say in general, they'll have larger teams or smaller teams depending on the size of the organization. But let's say they have about 3 people per organization roughly supporting Citrix. So that's 1.2 million people who should be potentially at Jarian's level or Steve at your level, but they're not, right? There's a huge, I forget the number, but maybe 25,000 total people trained, not CTPs or anyone with that level of knowledge, but even people that have gone through the courses, right? So that leaves, almost 1.2 million deficit or delta between the supply need, the demand for technical folks, and those people able to supply it, right? So what we do is say, hey, talk to them about that, and talk to them about the fact that there aren't enough Citrix specialists, so you need a technology like ours with embedded intelligence and automation that automatically looks and finds problems. Because most of the Citrix experts in these organizations will probably tell you that they spend way too much time running around trying to troubleshoot issues, and that a purpose-built technology that could tell them, for example, not necessarily right where the issue is, but where first not to look. Like, all of this stuff is fine, you don't need to look there, and to give them a guidepost of where the problem might be is what our technology does. And we have a pretty cool, and I can send it to anyone that wants, that was put together as a justification by a service provider to management for our product. And it talked about the amount of time that could be saved for really expensive Citrix experts and architects that are doing really mundane troubleshooting that ought to be done by a product, right? I mean, a lot of the things that go on with Citrix have nothing to do with the Citrix stack. It has to do with a lot of the peripherals, maybe even end user behavior. Most people don't know how to use Citrix, and now with remote workers, it's even worse, because now you have people that don't know Citrix, and layer on top of that, they've never worked remotely. Like, look at the two, Jarian and Steve have worked remotely. You went and built offices or create an office, right?
Mhm.
You know, I'm stuck in the den.
Yep.
Heather's in the living room. You know what I mean? Like if you're not used to working from home, you haven't created that. And so it's a kind of a difficult time for IT folks. And if you have a product that can help them troubleshoot issues quickly, it seems to be effective. But they've got to put dollars and cents around it.
Right. Excellent. Thomas, I was going to try to make fun of you as a CEO, but that was a great answer. And you brought up a lot of important dynamics I want to pick up on. So Heather, here's your chance to show your CEO how you do it.
No, I'd have to say I completely agree. Big thing at Goliath and with assisting our customers is going to be making data-driven decisions. You know, as Thomas mentioned, all the end user sees is that Citrix workspace application or Citrix receiver, and they just say, you know, Citrix is slow, but since they don't know all the details that go back and forth, you know, the Citrix team and the network team can fight all day back and forth and say, well, I think it's you. No, I think it's you. But without having any type of data, they're just, you know, wasting time and again, the emotion. So giving our customers the data they need to make those determinations of, you know, what is impacting the performance.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you a funny story. It's come up in a lot of contexts, but in our practice, we have a thing called the 99 rule. And when you got the finger pointing going on, we never say this out loud, but we always look at each other and go, it's the 99 rule. 99% of the time, it's the network. And they're always blaming Citrix, right? And even if it is Citrix, as Thomas said, there's Active Directory, storage, throughput, software, I mean, there's so many factors in any given environment. Even if it is Citrix, right, it's probably something else in the infrastructure. That's fantastic, guys. There's a good segue there. We've got a couple of questions that I think come together. One is from Stacy Live. I'll read hers and then I'll give you a little elaboration from a pre-sent question. Talking about employee productivity at home. Management has asked for reports to understand if employees are being as productive as home as in the office. Do any of you have anything to help with this? And the other question was the same thing about understanding, monitoring, managing productivity at home. But I just want to say a comment first. I believe it was Thomas said earlier, maybe it was Sam, that you actually can be productive at home. And because this is something I've done with clients and myself now for over 20 years, the dirty little secret is done right. People are more productive at home. I think it was Thomas you're talking about, or Sam, not having the commute. There's a tremendous time savings, but you have to do it right. And the challenge, it was Thomas, about being stuck at home. You're in your living room. Stephanie can't get on because she's at home and the bandwidth isn't right. All these type of things. But done right and configured right and people assisted to get live, work at home can actually be equal or more productive. I have a lot of field experience. But what about this idea of productivity and monitoring? You can also comment on whether you think it's appropriate for a company to monitor an employee working at home. Well, let's focus on the productivity and the tools. And I'll go backwards this time because I keep starting with Jarian. So let's do Thomas and Heather together. Either of you or both of you can jump in from Goliath's point of view.
Sure. So, it's funny when people start talking about remote workers or whether workers are productive. I can remember early in my career as a first line manager, if you've ever seen the movie Office and getting TPS reports. Well, I used to,
who hasn't?
I used to run an outside sales organization. It turns out that these folks are filling out timesheets. Now, I was only, 26 back then, but I still thought, what a complete waste of time. If you have to worry about whether your people are actually working, then you either hired the wrong person or they're in the wrong company because they're just not getting any fulfillment from their job, right? So we've always dealt with remote workers, and most of the concern in the past for us has been, can they work? Not if they're working, but can they work? Do they have good connectivity, et cetera, so that they're not sitting at home frustrated, right? The assumption being that they're trying to put in their typical 8 to 5 or however long they work. When COVID first started, we started getting requests from our customers that said management wants to understand while they're working. And I joked and I said, maybe instead of creating a Big Brother report, we should do a seminar on good management. Because if you really want people to work from home, well, if you
Yeah.
want to understand that they're productive or not, there's a lot of ways to do it without running sort of a binary report and drawing conclusions off of static evidence. That said, we did ultimately have to, because we had some of our largest customers ask for this report. We put together an end user productivity report that just shows when people have logged. Heather can go through the details of what it gives, but it essentially tells you if people are working, when they're working, and things like that. And what was really surprising is that I guess in the first 20 customers that asked for that report, and our current customers get it for free, we don't have to pay for it, they started sending it over to human resources. Instead of HR going after people and saying you're not working, they're starting to do analysis on how people are working, right?
Mm-hmm.
As they're working from home, they find the net is they're working more hours than they would, but
Yep.
they're variable based on what's happening in their home life, you know?
Right.
So it's been kind of an interesting finding, and universally, through our install base and having conversations with customers, we're finding that people are just very trustworthy. They're working and they're adjusting their work life to meet their lifestyle, and it just makes for happier and more productive workers overall.
That's great. Before I jump to Heather, I want to comment on that. You have to adjust to being at home. I'm really glad you brought that up, because you're more productive, as Jarian's describing at the very beginning. If you rearrange maybe your schedule a little bit, or now he's actually working in the home, which is an interesting irony, you may have to take a little time off to do something for the kids to free you up at night. And you have to have that flexibility, or you'll be less productive and more frustrated and so forth. It's a different animal. You gotta roll with it. Heather, what's your take on productivity monitoring and helping and understanding that situation?
So I definitely agree. You know, if you're going to have your workers work from home, there does have to be some type of trust, and especially with this is a whole new different ball game with COVID-19 and the fact that they may have to work different hours, but still are able to get all of their tasks done. Especially with young kids. I don't have any kids myself, but I just see from some of my friends, they might work 8 to 12 while their husband has the kid, and then they'll flip flop and then both work a little bit at night. So still getting the same amount of work done, but just not in that 9 to 5 period. So flexibility, but I definitely understand some of the apprehension, especially for some corporations. This was completely new. I feel like a lot of companies have been kind of moving towards the remote workers. But for net new people, I understand, why they may want some data to be like, all right, is everything good?
Right.
So that's why with this new report that we have, it monitors interaction. So instead of just looking at Citrix, when did the session start versus when the session end, obviously there's a lot of variables in between. They can minimize, they can disconnect. So we're using our proprietary knowledge to monitor, bandwidth to determine the interaction time of, how long were they actually engaging in the session, versus not, and giving a better understanding of their activity. And as Thomas mentioned, they're seeing that they are working so much more, but again, just not in between those specific hours.
Very good. So that's an interesting theme for Stacy, who asked the question. Maybe looking at interaction and the fact that activity is going on versus just things like when you log on, when you log off, that type of thing. Okay, I'm going up to my top tier on my window for Sam. How does automation play into this? What's your view on this subject, given your tools and tool set?
Well, so we want actually people to work less. If you look at my t-shirt, you talked about what you're wearing before. Our slogan is because people are not robots. So what we're trying to do is to automate all repetitive tasks. And we want to free up the workforce to focus on tasks that are more important to the organization, and maybe do some spending more time doing research and things that are not repetitive. We find that a lot of employees spend a lot of time just copying data from one place to another, opening email, opening PDFs and copying orders from here to there, and that's, or even actually in testing, you have test scripts, they do the same things again and again and again, we try to help with that and allow people actually a better quality of life and work and experience at work.
Sure.
In our experience working away from the office, which actually us too, we think we might not go back to the office ever because it's working very well. We're focusing more on productivity and on project than when people work. A lot of times actually we find ourselves working around the clock. We have customers in Europe and in Australia and of course in the US. So you cannot work continuously and be productive and be be good doing your job if you don't have time. Time down in between and take time to think about solutions to complicated problems instead of just logging in a lot of hours.
I might steal your little catchphrase there, though, when people start bringing up the subject. How do we make sure people are working more? We say, well, the goal is really to make them work less.
Yeah, that's right. They work better when they work less.
Yeah, that's a lot of power in
More
that. That's
productive.
awesome. Thanks. Jorian, what's your take on this from a Nutanix point of view?
Yeah, so our take from Nutanix is more, we see things from a VM level. So we're not going to necessarily see everything in guest, and that's where we can rely on things like Director, or for even further visibility, rely on things like Goliath as well to kind of see what exactly is going on inside of the VM. From a VM level, though, we can see things like, when the performance is happening, if there's an issue with performance, how to look at your performance runway. So do you need to think about ordering additional capacity as you're ramping users up? And also, too, looking at your VM saying, are you provisioned properly? Are you over provisioned? So we'll look at it more from a VM and an infrastructure level on the Nutanix side,
Okay.
and then rely on, like I said, Director, or for further visibility, third-party products like Goliath to see inside of that. As far as my take, as I said, I work from home for 6 years now, and with us having younger kids that we had to homeschool after mid-March, it's definitely a thing of balance of your schedules with your family, especially with your partner, your wife, and so forth. The main thing is results based, not looking at how long you're on, but what's your output, right? Are you getting things done? Are you productive? Are people waiting for you on things, or are you meeting all your deadlines and so forth? And so, in my role, it's been good because it's a results based, instead of how much you're on. The other thing too is communication, right? So with your manager, your team, set the expectations. Say, hey, today, there's these things going on in the home. I'm adjusting a little bit. I might be on, during these times. Also, to look at your communication tools. We use Slack a lot to communicate at Nutanix. So always be able to interact and talk and communicate to kind of set those expectations or to help each other out. Those are some good things there that I think about as we kind of make that shift from being in the office to working from home.
Awesome. So Heather, this one's for you from Curtis. He had asked the question and you answered part of it already. But I think the part, check here, yeah, part I don't think we addressed is this specific part. Does Goliath have views or reports to show end-to-end metrics? For example, HDX, ICA latency details from the client to the VDA, time spent, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Goliath, some of our main end user experience metrics are going to be ICA latency, network latency, because obviously, the ICA and HDX connection is going to be riding over the network in that TCP traffic. So having the network latency back from, that user's endpoint that they're connecting from to Citrix and back, ICA round trip times. We also are able, through our different APIs, able to gather connection speed as well, which is a really big metric that our customers will use and leverage when they're trying to troubleshoot it, especially with these users working from home, knowing how much internet connection they actually have. Is it enough in order to establish a good quality connection to Citrix?
That's great. That dovetails into Colin's question. Can you troubleshoot remote worker issues and know if home Wi-Fi is causing slow logins?
Yeah, so absolutely, our connection speed metric has the ability to do that, and it's great because of that's all without having any software in that user's at-home environment. Citrix receiver or workspace now on that user's laptop is actually sending that data and information to the Zen App Server VDI, and that's how we're able to gather that. So it's not like we're sending text packets or anything like that. It's actually the true data points that Citrix is even using to smooth out any connection issues or latency themselves.
Awesome, thanks for that. And let's see, this was for Jarian from Bob. I want to write PowerShell scripts to monitor my Nutanix hosts. What resources are available?
Yeah, so a couple of things are available there. We do have some PowerShell scripts and modules that you can use to connect and pull information from the infrastructure. But the main thing is going to be REST APIs that we have, and anything you can pull with REST APIs, because a lot of our interface is based on the same APIs. So you can script against those, pull the information, and be able to make your own tools using that. We do have some things out on our website, resources out there that you can go out there and look for, REST API browser, things in our forums too that others have done as well. So a lot of the stuff you're going to be used against is going to be our REST APIs.
So if they're really a PowerShell shop, they might use PowerShell to launch API queries, but they'd be sending REST, right? Does that sound right? Yeah.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, and then Sam, we've got a question for you. Automai help with synthetic transactions for Citrix. For example, session launch checks to ensure delivery groups are ready through application availability once inside the Citrix session from a proactive approach. Is that something that you guys handle in scope?
Absolutely. Actually, we go beyond that. So not only we launch the sessions, we can go through a custom process. It's a custom flow, and whatever applications you're launching inside Citrix sessions or VDIs can be monitored or replicated for performance testing using the same scripts, same automation. You can do performance testing, functional testing, and monitoring when the application is in production, continuously monitoring the end user experience and making sure that not only the user is getting the right response time to log in to Citrix and launch the session, it's actually going inside the transaction, inside the application, and continuously making sure that they're getting acceptable response time. And when anything goes wrong, we capture what's happening on a desktop and send it to an alert or to a third-party software like Goliath software or what you might call it, Splunk or AppDynamics or things like that.
Awesome. I'll just point out, it looks like, Jarian, did you put up a link for the developer tools at Nutanix? Is that what that is?
Yeah, so if you go to nutanix.dev, on that website, there's all kinds of tools out there that talks about our code samples, our API reference, our GitHub, things to help you get started. And so that's one place I would start to, if you want to look into working with the APIs using things like PowerShell and so forth.
Awesome, thanks for putting that out. And it's like Stephanie posted, I don't know if who can see what, but she's got it out there. And for the Goliath team, we've got an interesting question here, which I also wonder, how is Goliath different, or what does it add above Citrix Director and ADM tools that come with the products?
So let me talk at a higher level first, and then Heather can fill in some of the technical details. I think the first part of the answer is, and let me say this, Citrix tools are fine if they're working for you. I mean, it's a standard answer. If they're working, then they're working. We have to hunt for more problems. But if the Citrix tools are not, it usually is because Citrix tools were not designed to troubleshoot outside of the Citrix stack necessarily.
Right.
So,
okay.
We many times will say, and as you all mentioned a couple of times, people blame whatever they see on the screen, right? They blame Citrix. And these aren't, I mean, you're not going to have an end user call in and say, hey, I'm having a problem logging in my census, it's Active Directory. They're just not going to say that, right? Unless they're, so the point is that they're made, the reasons for the technology, the development thesis is different. Theirs is helping to make sure that their products are up and running and effective and performing, when our product is taking into consideration basically everything that Director does, and then looking at lots of outside componentry, and understanding the IT telemetry that's involved in delivering a good end user experience. And then we really go overboard in terms of how you can share that data, how you can integrate that data into other platforms, and then how you can enhance that data through reports and other things, printing it off, sharing it with counterparts, vendors, and things like that. So that's sort of the high level answer, but Heather can fill in. There are some technical details that are important to note as well, I believe.
Well, and Heather, we got another question that's relevant I might insert here from Colin. Does Goliath offer enough granularity in login performance metrics to see exactly what GPO is causing slow logins? And you can jump off on that if you want to say more.
Absolutely, yeah. So with Goliath, it's not we when we talk about end user experience and performance, we usually talk about it in 3 areas. So one's in session performance, which we talked about a little bit in the last question. You know, slowness, freezing, lag, but then also login performance. How long does it take to get into this session, or can they even get into the session at all? So we do have, I think, 33 plus stages of visibility into the logon process, looking, you know, was it something on the GPO side? Was it profile load? And so on. So we can absolutely expand into that, and even kind of going off of the previous question that Thomas was talking about of monitoring more than just, you know, Citrix itself and the end user performance. We have a lightweight intelligent agent that we will deploy onto all of the different role servers, so we can see, you know, is the delivery controller having issues with brokering, you know, the storefront, monitoring all the key services, also going all the way down to the hypervisor level to give our customers, you know, a full end-to-end look at, you know, what could be contributing to their issues with Citrix.
So Heather, I think you're psychic because you keep addressing things that you're posting. I think you said this, but I want to circle back a second because Curtis asked specifically, is Goliath agent-based? Can it monitor the hypervisors as well, in this case on Nutanix?
So we do have customers on Nutanix. We do have a hybrid approach where we do have some agentless monitoring, but for the Citrix piece specifically, we install a lightweight intelligent agent onto your role servers, onto your XenApp and BDI. It uses about 0.1% of a CPU core. It's about 1.5 megs in size, and generally uses around 50 to 80 megs of RAM for, there's no reboot required, anything like that. Because I feel like sometimes people hear agent and they kind of shy away because it might have a negative connotation, but we call ours the intelligent agent because of, you know, we took all of that into consideration when building it, and, you know, made sure that it can run seamlessly in your environment and you don't really know it's there.
Excellent. I'm going to come back to Sam because you hit on something, Sam, last comment you made about you can send information over to Goliath, and I wanted to ask about using the products together. Is there a play where these products, you know, are both used and complement each other?
Yeah, we work together. We just started talking about integrating them more, but we do have customers in common. They do work together. We actually look at the front end, like you were saying before. Environments are more and more complicated, so we look at it literally from the front end. We don't know what's happening in the back end. We are that user, that robot that's gonna emulate end user, and then with Goliath tools, you can see what's happening in the back end. And the robot will work 24/7. We put them to work. So in what we're trying to do is catch problems before your end users are affected by those issues, and we can monitor from all your points of presence as well.
Great. Heather, anything to add to that when someone wants to use the two products together?
I think Sam said it great. They have the automation on the front end, but having our agent on the back end does give them, you know, full visibility into the Citrix components, as well as, you know, the OS and application layers too.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Steve, we've had such a number of customers jointly that have asked us to work together that we actually, Goliath is it's not our business model to resell other products, but we actually resell Automai.
Interesting. Okay, wow, that's pretty powerful. All right, thank you for that, guys. So I think we're going to broaden out a little bit because we got, you know, Jarian here, and he's such a fountain of knowledge. We got a question I'm going to throw to you first, Jarian, which is how mature is Citrix WEM? Is it really optimizing large Citrix environment in the right manner?
So WIM is really mature. That came from an acquisition where before the acquisition, Steve and his team were very familiar with Northscale, and it's been out there for a number of years and bought by Citrix to kind of help with manage the workspace environment, the virtual desktops, the XenApp servers or the virtual app servers now, along with being able to convert endpoints to thin clients. So it's a mature product and it's only getting better. Even with the releases of being able to optimize memory and CPU and help with spikes and that kind of stuff. So the one thing you have to be careful though is not be too overly aggressive, especially on the memory optimizations, is because that can, as you're doing memory optimizations, that's going to go into paging, and that paging can go into excessive disk performance type issues. So you got to be careful as far as how much you're doing it, how soon you're doing it, but it does help, especially with the spiking CPU environments and so forth, and being able to easily lock down and control settings on the desktop. So I think it's a good step that Citrix took to get into some more contextual type of environment control over what they have, which is basically group policy.
And it wouldn't be multiple CTPs on a meeting if we didn't throw darts at it. But Darian was saying it's a powerful tool, but environments are getting complicated with RAM caches and SSDs and all kinds of things. I think what a short version there would be to look at the timing. If you make the memory process too short a time, you get thrashing. Longer time's better. The default is probably good. I think it's 120 minutes or something, but don't make it too short. That's where we see the problems.
Yeah, I've seen a couple environments where they've gotten really low and they're like, why is my disk performance so crazy? And it's like, you shouldn't be going, under 30 seconds, and you're doing this, every 10 seconds. So of course, that's what you're going to see.
Right, exactly. And then the other thing, because we like to give honest thing, is we've seen a couple of challenges in recent WEM versions as they grow and expand to the Citrix Cloud support. We've had a couple of issues with WEM lately. So test, I would just recommend you test and make sure you're on a good stable version that's not introducing some problems. But as far as the maturity, multi-years, it's solved so many problems in environments. It's a great framework. I just be careful of right now testing carefully because we have seen a couple of glitchy things lately. All right, we got a question from the #1 hardest working man in the EUC community, Patrick Coble. He actually has 2 questions. So I'm going to throw them both out and you can answer one or both. Okay, I'll repeat them if we need to as we go. So this is a hard one. I don't like when people throw these at me, so that's why I'm giving you a choice. The first one is what is one of your best IT fails? So that's optional. And the other one is, what do you think is the coolest tech trend or product right now that you see going on? And I'll start again with Jari and we'll reverse this way.
So
you
what
IT
am I?
fail, you want to pass on that?
IT fail. I think it that's a hard one to think about.
It is. That's why I'm giving you making it optional, or we can come back to you. If you want to take #2 first, is the coolest tech trend or product you see right now?
So I think just one of the cool product trends I'm seeing right now is some of the technology behind Bitcoin, I guess, and how they're doing that and how things are being decentralized.
Good.
I think that can apply to a lot of things. That platform, just the way the technology, not Bitcoin itself, but the underlying technology and how they're using it. And so that's one thing I've been starting to keep more of an eye on and to see how that can apply to other things.
That's really interesting. I think one of the concepts I like about from Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is trustless environments, that you can actually have secure data without firewalling, because the data is encrypted. And there's different concepts, but one of them is that 2 parties can share encrypted data without each other revealing it, and you can validate that the other party's asking. So it changes the security model that you can actually trust things without hiding them. It can be in public and still private. So that's really great stuff. Sam, what do you like what's happening, or do you want to admit to some big IT fail? Either way.
Well, no, well, that is a hard one for me too. The AI actually is the big game changer for us, and I think for IT. And I think we're just scratching the surface with AI. There's so many use cases and so many things. We still don't know how to use it yet, really. And that's what makes it very interesting and challenging, actually, for us, and see how to use it the right way. And how there's so much things to do with it so far. Yeah.
Great. Heather, are you going to be the first to step up and do an IT fail? No,
Yeah, I mean, my role specifically isn't super into IT, but I do, try to help out and collaborate. And I have to say, Thomas, I apologize, but I think one time I accidentally unplugged the phone system and the phones went down in the office, and I think I was like, oh, I think that was me. Whoops.
That's a good one. Thanks for admitting that. And I know the coolest trend right now is your upcoming wedding, but
Yeah.
not in tech. How about in tech? Do you have any tech things you think are cool?
I'm like obsessed with Apple Pay, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Love not having to have a physical card to pay for anything, and my cell phone's always in my hand, and definitely love that.
I have to admit, I'm glad you brought that because I wouldn't have thought of that. I'm always thinking EUC, cloud, enterprise, but I actually do think Apple Pay and Apple's security model in general is really exciting.
Yeah.
It's because I trust Apple, and they do Pay gives you the security and a good feeling, but super convenient. And websites that implement it now, if I'm on my Mac, I'll have that option even just
Oh
on the
yeah.
desktop, Apple Pay. So yeah, and it's interesting that Jarian brought up Bitcoin and you brought up Apple Pay. Digital cash transaction is an important part of our future, and those are both good examples of where that's going. Thomas, IT fail trends. Tell us what you want to talk about.
I'll give a shot at both. One of the biggest IT fails really helped us get into the healthcare industry. We had a Fortune 500 public organization that manages acute care hospitals and behavioral health facilities, and they use Cerner. And they were having real problems logging onto Cerner. I mean, hospitals, if you can imagine acute care hospitals being down for 5 or 10 minutes, right? And the interesting thing is that it had nothing to do with Cerner. Cerner is primarily a hosted application. And this organization, which had our product on the Citrix side of the house, came to us and said, can you help us with these problems? And we went to their health system, and we created a product specifically for this organization to get them out of this situation. When we created the product, and they thought that it might point the finger at Cerner being the culprit, it wasn't Cerner at all. It was elements within the IT infrastructure that were causing those downtime, those problems. So it really required us to build enhancements, not a brand new product, but enhancements to our technology within a 120-day period and deliver it to solve these problems permanently. Unfortunately, it solved the problem. It showed the health system that the problems were on their side, not on the Cerner side. But that's a huge IT fail and a real painful one because it translates into patient care most importantly. But it turned out it helped us build a better product, and now the product is used very widely by health systems that utilize Cerner, to deliver better care. I think AI to me is one of the most exciting trends, at least in the enterprise. Setting aside Apple Pay for a second. And those types of consumer things. I think that AI, if it translates into IT the way it should, is going to be pretty fantastic development.
Okay, so we have a tie for forms of digital payment and AI. So I'll be the tiebreaker here because I'm the odd number guy, and I'll give trophies to both. I think those are both great trends. We have an honest man in the chat. Brian Mooney, he said, don't feel bad. I pulled the wrong hard drive once on a RAID 5 array. And anyone who's done long-term administration has pulled the wrong drive on a RAID array before. So thank you for being honest, Brian, and speaking up there. Stephanie, we're coming up on the hour. Can I do another round? Do we have time for that?
Yeah, you want to do like one more good question?
Yeah,
Get
or I'll
everybody
tell you
in?
what I'll do. I'll just ask you guys to each share whatever it is you'd like to say. Maybe you didn't get to say or we didn't ask about, or what you think is important for the attendees. And I'll start up with Jarian again.
Yeah, so one of the most important things, I kind of want to share that may not covered is I saw some of the questions that came in for the pre stuff, and one was about cloud. And so where does Nutanix fit in the whole cloud picture? And so we fit in a couple of things. One is our Beam product, which can help tell you what you're spending in the cloud and compare to other clouds, and help you kind of pick which cloud is better optimized for your workload. Going there. The other is going to be our Xi Leap, which is our disaster recovery as a service, which is our own data centers across the world, where instead of you having to have a secondary site and bring more Nutanix gear in, you can have a managed DR service by us in the cloud where you can just fail over the workloads to that.
Nice.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just said nice. That's a cool feature. Yeah.
And our third one is our clusters initiative, which I'm really excited about, because our clusters initiative, which is going to be launching soon, is be able to take our AHV, all of our software, and run that bare metal in the cloud, provisioned in the cloud, with under an hour, be able to hibernate and resume things, use things for bursting, especially times like now where lead times on hardware and getting infrastructure in-house have longer lead times. So with our clusters, we can take AHV on-prem, extend that into the cloud, bare metal provision, hibernate it, wake it up, and then our first initial release will be on AWS, and you can spin those up on different bare metal instances all across all the world. So Nutanix is looking at cloud and how can we extend on-prem customers into the cloud, help them for better optimize for the cloud, extend burst into the cloud, DR in the cloud, and so that's where Nutanix is fitting. And with our Xi Leap and both of our clusters, it's that single pane of glass from going from on-prem into the cloud.
Awesome. Sam, what else would you like to add today before we close?
Well, and I mean, I want to add to what Jarian said, and actually we fit in very well with the Beam product that he was talking about for costs. And if you use our automation tools to generate those custom flows, so that Beam can simulate the costs and tell you where to go, what cloud platform to use at the beneficial cost. I think our tools work together very well, and automation helps tremendously before going live and even after you're live to monitor the applications and make sure that everything is working as it should and your users are getting the experience they deserve.
Awesome. Okay, we're up on the hour, so we're going to go slightly over. So anybody who has to leave on the hour, thanks for being here. We're just going to go over a little bit at this point. And Heather, you're up next for what you'd like to add before we close.
I guess I just wanted to reiterate, Goliath and, being purpose built for troubleshooting end user experience. So if you guys have any issues with, log on initiation, log on duration, or in session performance, highly recommend taking a look at Goliath. We have 30-day, evaluations. And we also say when you're looking at our product, don't just test our product, also test our support. I work for the support team and, just making sure, you feel comfortable after purchase as well. But
Excellent.
I'll leave the rest to Thomas.
Yeah, thanks for that, Heather. Thomas?
I just like to say that I appreciate the CUGC community and appreciate, Steve, you taking the time and the other panelists taking the time to put this on, and Stephanie as well. It's a fantastic community, and we get a lot of benefit from it as an organization, especially the feedback we get from various folks that are members of CUGC and give us feedback on our products. Some of it's a little hard to listen to from time to time, but it helps us make a better product and serve the community better. So we appreciate it and thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Thomas. And I'll also add before we go that the Citrix user group community is fantastic. It's growing very, very fast. It provides tremendous service. Stephanie is completely awesome. We love her and everybody at the team, and we appreciate the events and the opportunity to talk together and to have these conversations. So Stephanie, I'll hand it over to you to take us out.
Okay, I just have a couple of slides left. We are giving away a t-shirt. First of all, thank you so much, everybody. And thanks for all the kind words. All right, so we are giving away 3 t-shirts, and I just need to make sure get the chat open here. All right, so for the first 3 people who can tell me where the last CUGC XL event that was in person was held. This might be too hard because I don't know if everybody remembers because it's been a while.
Didn't you say it when it started? I thought we talked about it.
Well, we had one last week that was virtual.
Oh, virtual.
Before that, before everything fell apart and we fell into the upside down, we had one.
I know.
Jarian, it's
He knows. He was there, right?
oh yeah, he was.
No, there was one after that one. There was one more after that one. Yep.
Okay. We got
Well, I got the right country. Nope, not Chicago. Nope, nobody knows. Oh,
No,
it's too hard.
but John said on a spaceship. That's pretty awesome.
Well, you know what? That's a good hint. If I had to give a hint, space was involved.
Oh, no kidding, because I was there. I didn't realize that was the last one.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think you were there, Steve.
Okay. Okay. Anybody?
Oh, good guess. Florida's a good guess, but no.
That's a
We
good
did
guess.
have one in Florida.
But in
Yeah,
this
so
case,
where's
we have a
another
problem.
space center in the United States? All right, I'll accept. Yep.
Was mine right in our chat?
Oh, I'm not looking at the chat anymore. Let me see. Yes.
Yeah, but not, you didn't have the city, but yeah.
But yeah, so okay, all right. I got here we go. I got it. Space Center Houston. All right, so
That's it.
I got 3.
By
Awesome.
the way, that was an incredible event. That was an absolutely incredible event.
That was a hard one. That's awesome. People maybe had to go search it.
Yep. The presentation room was right next to the full-scale space shuttle. And Patrick Coble and I came in a day early and did the deep level 9 tour of the Space Center. It was incredible. Highly recommended when you can again to go there and take that tour. It's an all-day type of thing.
All right, yeah, I wish I could have gone. I didn't get to go to that one. All right, so finally, I know some of you opted in for a chance to win one of 3 $100 gift cards, and I want to give everybody a fair chance. So I'm going to pull the final registration report after I end the webinar, and I will do a randomizer in the Google randomizer, and I will draw 3 names, and we'll announce that on Twitter pretty soon. I'll get that done as soon as we log off here. So stay tuned and make sure you follow us at MyCUGC on Twitter. That's where you get the most up-to-date information about what's going on. So with that, I just want to thank all of you guys for being here. Thank you, Jarian and Sam, Heather and Thomas and Steve. Really appreciate you giving us your time today and being open to answering any questions that were thrown at you. It was a great conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always happy to help out CUGC.
And Jarian, you'll be back in a couple of weeks, I think, with a Nutanix webinar. So we'll see you back. All right, everyone. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll all be able to get together in person one day soon. Wouldn't that be neat?
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Good day.